everybody! It's Cheerful Conversations time, and it is episode 46. We are continuing to roll through all of these episodes, and I am here with one of my favorite people. I know I have a lot of favorite people, but it's not an exception. Jason Frazell. Jason, welcome.
Hi, Apryl. I feel like you say that to all your guests. So
I do, but it's like I really adore everyone that I have on the show. It's like,
you have 46 of your favorite people. I get it. I totally feel you. Totally feel you.
Amazing. Yes, and so we are going to be talking about some really amazing stuff today, as always. We're really going to dive into this idea of success, but also like having fun. And
yes.
I feel like this is like my platform. I feel like this is what I talk about all the time, but I haven't had a conversation about it. And so I'm really excited to just see what shows up today. We've got some things planned. We've got, we're going to wing a lot of it just as we always do, but it's going to promise to be an amazing, amazing episode as it always is. So achieving success the fun way. And we'll just start before we jump into really talking about the nitty gritty. I want you to get to know my awesome co-host. So Jason, why don't you share with everybody who you are and what you do?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Jason Frazell. I am a success coach. So what I really mean by that is I work with private clients and some companies on creating success in their life, whatever that means for them, which, as we're going to talk about, means something different to most everybody. So that's what I do. Just by way of background, I live in Brooklyn, New York, and I'm originally from Minnesota, and I'm also a Big Tenor. I went to the University of Minnesota, as we've talked about. I know you went to Northwestern. I went to Minnesota,
there's somebody on the Minnesota football team right now, I think, whose last name is Schluter. It's really funny too, because I guess our family had been talking about it, but so me and my husband say Schluter. His sister obviously is married, so she has a different last name, but his brother and his dad, like their two families, they go by Schluter. And so we were like, we wondered how he pronounced it. And so we were like trying to Google him and seeing him introduce himself to people, and he says Schluter. So we're the
Wait, hold on. Let me get this straight. You and your husband pronounce your last name differently than your husband's brother?
And parents, yes. Isn't it weird?
Okay. I don't even know where to begin with that. That's crazy.
It's funny too, because I didn't know about it until way after I think we were married. Because I think I always knew Tim as a Schluter, and it was funny because he used to call himself a Schluter, but when he got to college, his roommate was just like, Schlu, that was just the thing. And he just was like, I'll go with it. And it has stuck. And that's the only way that I ever knew him. And so when I find out that his parents don't pronounce it the same way, I was like, that's crazy. That's
wild.
That never came up in conversation before we got married. Because I literally feel like I only found out about this like 5 years ago. So it's kind of crazy.
That is fascinating. I don't even know what to say about that.
I know. So I'm like, for everybody that's concerned about how to pronounce my last name, I know it's hard, and everybody butchers it. They butchered my maiden name as well, but it's Schluter.
Schluter. That's a very Scandinavian sounding last name. When you put the Schlu in there, it's like a very Swedish sounding.
Yeah, it's German, but it's like, hello, I'm Apryl Schluter. And everybody gets so messed up when they see that. They're like, oh, it's this Asian chick. Like, I wasn't born into this, but it's my last name. And
what is your maiden name, by the way? I don't know if I remember.
It's Zarate. So it's like karate with a Z. But I think, that got butchered a lot too, because the Philippines is like a mixture of like Spain and China, and so there's a lot of people who have Spanish sounding names, which I fall into that. So a lot of people might say Zarate or something like that, and then a lot of people might have Chinese last names, like our best friend one of our best friends who's also Filipino, his last name is Tan, which is very Chinese. So we have a lot of those influences, but I was like, just make it Zarate, but people would be like Zarate or Zarat or Zarate, and I'm like, okay, maybe that's okay, but that's not how I pronounce it, so it's wrong.
There you go.
But Yay! So you don't get to worry about like maiden names and whatnot. And my maiden name is now my middle name. My
Oh, cool.
middle name prior was Anne. But it was actually, so I've had, this is like my third middle name because when I was born in the Philippines, and you take your mom's maiden name as your middle name.
Hmm.
Then when we moved to the US, which was like when I was 2 months old, they changed it to Anne. So I don't know exactly where that switched, but that, and so that was on my social security card. And then,
Yeah,
yeah, when I got married. So it's
there you
like
go.
my name shows up in like very different variations all over. So gotta love it.
Very
So
confusing for people, but as long as you're good with it, I'm good with it.
yeah.
And the audience up here is good with it too.
All right, so let's talk about how we met. And
Yes,
what's funny is that we recorded a podcast episode for you because he's got this awesome podcast, talking to cool people, right?
that is right.
And so we recorded that I don't know, was that about a month ago now?
Yeah, I
It
think a little
feels
over.
like
Yeah,
yesterday.
it does feel like yesterday. I think it was like maybe 4 weeks ago, something like that.
I think,
Because
yeah, I think it was like
the
end of
episode's
May.
not out yet. Because the
Yeah.
episode hasn't been released yet. So yeah.
So for double dose, this is coming out first because we're actually recording this on a Monday and it's coming out on a Wednesday. But yeah, so you'll get a double dose. If you like this conversation, you should definitely you should go to hear the other one as well because there's just so
Definitely.
much jam. I don't even remember what we talked about, but I feel like we're definitely more equipped to, like, we've gotten out of any of because we've known each other for a while and we
Yeah.
know each other through Science of People, which is how would you describe it? I mean, it's run by Vanessa Van Edwards, who's like the lead investigator and I don't know if she's starting to say something different because I know that she was like, maybe I'll call
I think
myself.
that's still her thing. I think
Yeah.
she's the CEO of Science People, and I believe, because she's going to be in my podcast, actually, I believe she's still the chief behavioral investigator, I want to say. But Vanessa, if you happen to hear this, like, don't kill us. But it's something like that. It's really clever. I love it.
I mean, yeah, and it's like we should all just make our own titles. I feel like I'm definitely, and since I've talked to you, I feel like I'm making a slight pivot, but I don't really know how I'm gonna do it yet. So that'll be interesting. But that we can talk about that in our conversation because I think that is part of achieving success in the fun way. So.
Exactly.
So we met. We haven't met in person yet. I've been to New York, I think, twice since we've met. 2 or 3 times, and I have yet to do that. So next time I'm coming to New York, maybe after all of this coronavirus stuff is over.
Exactly. Stay away for now.
I know. Yeah. So this is going to be like the wave of the next year. Everybody's going to be having conversations like just side by side like this. So it's hilarious.
Yeah.
Not hilarious, but it's still kind of funny. Yeah, so we will meet in person at some point, but we've had some really awesome conversations thus far, and it's just been so great to meet so many people through that program because we're both certified body language trainers now, right?
Yes.
Yay.
We are. I'm reading your micro expressions as we speak.
I know. I'm like, I don't know what my micro expressions look like right now. So, okay. So let's talk about like something that you geek out on. And I know I ask this of every single co-host that I have on, and it's hard. It's like a little bit challenging because I think everybody who has been on the show geeks out on whatever they're doing in their work. And so I take it to the second step and say, like, you can't choose your work. So what's something that you geek out on?
So I would not. So this question is interesting, and I actually asked this in my podcast as well because it's a fun question.
Yeah.
And most people in my almost nobody in my podcast answers with their work.
That's good.
And it actually doesn't occur to me. So maybe we don't geek out about our work about as much as your guest. But the first thing that comes to mind for me is film. And now let me describe this.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a self-proclaimed movie snob, like a snob. And I'll start with a tradition that my family has. For the 10th year in a row, so this is early 2020, so we just wrapped up the Oscars last month.
Mm-hmm.
Every year, my brother, my sister, my brother-in-law, my brother's mother-in-law, myself, and a couple other family members, we watch all the Oscar-nominated Best Pictures every year. Okay. Not the acting awards necessarily, but we watch all of them and we stack rank them, and then my brother blogs about it. And it's like this huge tradition that his blog actually gets a lot of people on it. And it's really fun. And so every year we rank like our 1 through 9. This year there was 9 Best Picture nominees, so we rank our 1 through 9 or stack ranking, and then we pick who we believe should win in the acting categories and the directing category and the writing category. So adapted screenplay and original screenplay.
And do you do
So,
this before the Oscars come out?
yes, before the
Okay.
Oscars. So the blog comes out the Saturday before the Sunday of the Oscars.
Okay.
So this year the Oscars were 3 weeks earlier than usual.
Hmm.
So yes, we put it out there, and we actually all had a unanimous number one.
What was did it match up? Because
It
I
did. It was Parasite. We all thought, well,
yeah,
everybody but one out of the 7 of us, 6 of us voted Parasite as our favorite movie of the year, and it won Best Picture. So that was pretty
nice.
cool, because usually that is not how it goes.
Yeah.
And but so the reason I say I geek out about this is, for me, it's like not optional. Like when these movies are out, I will like climb to the ends of the earth to watch all 9 of these movies, whether it be like, so some of them this year was great, like The Irishman and Marriage Story were streaming on Netflix, so that's easy.
Yeah.
Some of them, like 1917, just came out in the theater in I think January. Like I will make it a top priority to go see this, to the behest of my marriage even. Where it's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, no, I need to go see this movie.
Wow.
But I'm a snob about movies overall, in that I will like look at Metacritic. I don't know if you know what Metacritic is.
Mm-mm.
It's you know what Rotten Tomatoes is?
Yes.
Same thing. It's like an aggregate of all the scores. And if
Okay.
a movie scores below a certain critic's thing, I'm like, nope, I won't see it. Which is
Mhm.
super annoying. So I actually based a lot of what I love about movies and what I nerd out about movies on like what other people think. But I almost always agree with the critics. And it's interesting because my wife is so opposite in this way. She's like, oh, that new movie with like James Franco's out. I like James Franco. Let's go see it. I'm like, no, looks terrible. No.
Oh my
But then
gosh.
I'll go see like a foreign film. I'll go see black and white films. I'm
Yeah.
just a big movie like snob, and I'm also really like hard when people aren't like that. I'll be like, well, why would you go waste your time seeing that movie? They're like, oh, I just want to be bored and I just want to be entertained and zone out. I'm like, no, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, so
So
we're
I'm
not
like,
going to talk about the types of the stuff that I watch, and I'm kidding, because I feel like, yeah, I feel like I don't watch that many movies. I will watch something. A lot of what I do watch, I get kind of hooked on a person. Like whether
mm,
or not they're, and then I want to see everything, right? So like, I was a huge fan of Friends, which is funny also in the fact that I didn't start watching it until season 8, and then
what? That's funny.
that was around the time when like DVD, you couldn't record onto DVDs, or stuff wasn't streaming and on demand, and so
Right.
but it was like playing all the time, and I would literally take my VHS tape and like record all the times that it was showing, and I printed out a list of all of the episodes. And this is before I got the DVDs, which was like around season 10, and I was like, did I watch that episode? Cross it off. I literally watched them all until I got caught up. And then I started buying the DVDs and then like watched it again. But like basically anything that any of the actors from Friends have been in, I'm just watching just for the sake of, so like Cougar Town, and when Courtney Cox was in that. And then I just watched The Morning Show with Jennifer Aniston. And
Yeah.
I watched like
Yep.
all of her movies, and I just like love them.
Yeah.
And so I'll do that, but it really like, because I'm so, I think, addictive when it comes
Yeah.
to like anything, that it's like I don't want to just watch for the sake of watching. Like I need that connection
Yeah.
in order to kind of go there, even if it's bad. I'm like, okay, I just want to see it, because you
Yeah.
get
That's like, you and I are exactly opposite. Like, you take my favorite actor or actress of
yeah,
all time. If they're in their movie that I think is bad, I don't care. I don't have
yeah,
any desire to see it.
yeah. I mean, but I should watch Parasite. I feel like I'm trying to get myself motivated to like watch something.
Yeah. Well, it's
I'm
also subtitled. So if you don't like, that's the thing is,
yeah.
subtitled, you really have to focus.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think I watch everything with subtitles anyways, because
Ah, I
I'm
actually,
one of
because
those people that like is like, wait, what did they say? And I think it's because I'm not that audio, and I want to hear, like I'm such a communicator that I want to
yeah,
see every word. I'm like, did you say something that I just missed? Wait, what?
yeah,
So especially in reality TV shows, I'm like, wait, so and so's talking. Do they have that in the, like I hear something in the background. What are they saying? You're trying to focus on somebody else. So that's
yeah.
just me. Maybe it's because I'm from a foreign country or
No,
something.
actually,
Like it gets
I realized I do the same thing for shows like Game of Thrones or Homeland, where there's just a ton of stuff going on.
yeah,
I'll actually watch with subtitles as well. So I'm like, I want to know, like, who did you just mention? Because I'm also not that auditory either.
yeah.
So yeah, we have that in common for
So
sure.
here's a question: do
Yeah.
you like, or when you read books? Do you just read them? Do you listen to audiobooks? Like, how do you do it?
So I'm a speed reader, so I prefer to read
Okay.
if possible, but we spend a lot of time in the car. So
Okay.
I do listen, and I spend a lot of time walking. I'm in New York City.
Yeah.
So I spend a lot of time listening to podcasts or books on audio. The
Hmm.
challenge for me is because I'm a speed reader, it gets challenging to listen at 1x to somebody speaking because it feels slow to me.
Yeah.
But
Oh my God, it is really slow.
then if I move it to 1.25, then it feels too fast to me. So
Oh, interesting.
I probably prefer to read, and the way my mind works is like, and this is an interesting thing I talked to my wife about a long time ago now. I have a really easy time, like I'm very visual. So as
Mhm.
I'm reading a book, I can actually like visualize it, and it becomes a movie in my mind. And
Yeah.
my wife was telling me, we were talking about this one time, and she's like, no, like she hates reading. And it turns out she can't visualize it in her mind. I'm like, well, that would be horrible. So when she reads a book, she doesn't see the movie playing,
Yeah.
but in fiction. So yeah, I think if I had to choose, I would choose to read, but then obviously driving in the car, on the subway, like
Yeah.
audios makes more sense.
Yeah. See, I can't do just an audiobook because like my mind, it like travels at 50 miles a minute and like I'll be like, wait, what? And then I'll rewind it and then I have to like re-listen, especially if I'm in the car, right? You can't just like scroll back while you're driving. So I
Right.
can't just listen to an audiobook. I am not great at reading. I'm super visual as well. So like this is so bad for people who love to read, like will totally judge me right now, but it's like I'd rather watch the movie so that I have some like visual in front of me that I can connect to than just reading it. But I will read books on occasion, and when I do, I have to read and I have to have the audiobook playing at the same time. So I
Wait,
love it
what?
when, yeah, so it's like I give
Oh
like double
wow.
to those authors. And so, especially if the person who wrote it is narrating, like those are my favorite because it's like I
Yeah.
want to hear like I want to hear the inflections, I want to hear all of that. It just like that
Yeah.
then gives me more of a visual, whereas like I'm reading a book um where the person who wrote the book is Asian and he has a Chinese accent, or I'm not Asian accent, and he didn't read his thing, but like it's funny because he's has all these YouTube videos, so like I'll go back and like I'll see the reading and I'll listen to it, and then I'll go and watch like the YouTube video that he's like talking about
Yeah.
in there. So like it's like I need like all the senses, like I need it all to
Oh
stimulate
wow.
me. It's kind of crazy, but
That's
yeah.
that's cool, April. I've actually never thought about doing that, but I
Yeah.
actually like that. I feel like if I listened to an audiobook at 1.25 and was following along, it would be fine.
Yeah. You
That's
should
super
do
cool.
that if you haven't read my book yet. It's like it's really fun to like when I was listening to myself, I'm like, oh, this is weird, it's me, but it gives so much different energy to what I wrote on the page because when I was reading it, I was like, this seems robotic. So I just started to talk a little bit
Yeah.
more. And it just makes the audiobook version of my book a little bit more lively
Yeah.
because when you read the words on the page and you see them edited, it's like it's very matter of fact and it's
Yeah.
weird. So I had to just throw my little spins in there. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah. The last thing on this quickly. Do you know the book The Things They Carried? It's a Vietnam book. It's a very famous book. It was
yeah.
written in the 90s or maybe the late 80s. And my friend Francesca, she had said it was one of her top 5 books she'd take to a desert island.
Oh,
And
okay.
I hadn't read it since high school, so like 25 years. And I remember it being an awesome book. And I went and got the book on audio, and the narrator was Bryan Cranston. It was phenomenal,
Oh,
phenomenal, because Bryan Cranston has an amazing voice, and
yeah.
it was very cool to because the author's voice is kind of so,
Hmm.
but it was really cool to go back and like revisit a book from your high school years that you hadn't listened to or read in a long time, and then
Yes,
have like Bryan Cranston reading it to you. You're like, this is pretty cool.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. All right, let's get back on track. And the next thing that we have to do is this is my little game that I've been pulling from. It's called Vulnerability is Sexy.
I love it.
There's
Is
three
that an
different
actual
categories.
game?
It's
That's
an
an actual
actual
game.
game, so
That's cool.
I'm not playing it the right way, but the questions are still good. So there's three
Yeah.
different categories that we can pull from.
Yeah.
One is just break the ice, so that's a more of an introductory question. One is get vulnerable, which is a little bit deeper. And then the
Yeah.
third category is laugh a little. So it might be a little bit more humorous of an answer. So
Yeah.
ever since we switched to offering all three categories, everybody gets to pick. So which one would you like?
I'd like to do vulnerability.
Awesome. Let's do it.
It is man and vulnerability time in our world, right? Like it's the whole thing. Because
Yeah.
laughing is easy and ice breaking is easy. So let's go for the challenge.
I love it. So I'm going to read this, or I'll put it back and we'll both answer it. So here's the question. Wait for it to what is one way?
Good.
Hold on. I'm like trying to get to focus. Come on. There we go. What is one way you're holding yourself back in your life right now?
So good.
I feel like we talked about this on your podcast with what my answer is going to be, but okay. Who do you want?
In coaching, we call this self-sabotage.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, you know the thing that you're doing. So who goes first, you or I?
You can choose. Okay,
I'll go first.
Okay.
So many places to choose from. Let's go with health.
Okay.
So I work out. Like I have a trainer, committed to working out, staying in deep. I'm in probably some of the best shape I've been in my life in terms of the things I can do.
Yeah.
Like maybe not like how I look, but like my flexibility, my strength, and all those things. And so I go a long time and I'll work out one day a week with my trainer and I'm like, this is awesome. And then I carve out time in my calendar to do it. And then I make a million excuses why I can't do it. And we have a gym in our building and it's awesome. So it's not like I have to drive to the gym or anything. So first thing is I'm committed to my health and I'm not working out as much as I believe I should. I'm going to say I believe I should because it's just an opinion. So I'm only doing it 2 or 3 days a week and I make excuses to why. But the more important one, how I'm holding myself back is around my body, my weight. So I set the intention to lose a little bit of weight, not a New Year's resolution, just like, hey, working out, in good shape, lose weight. So I will do a really great job. And then I will do things like go to the closet and eat some Mike and Ike's or like just like candy is just garbage. Like it does nothing for you. It doesn't fill you up. It doesn't.
So good though.
Yes, but not even like chocolate. You know how my wife likes chocolate.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like chocolate actually has some sort of nutritional value. It's natural and it's got some milk. Like Mike and Ike's, this is processed sugar, corn syrup, and artificial everything. But I'll just like eat Mike and Ike's. So I'll bet you if I stop doing that, like if you think about it, if you eat a pack of Skittles, it's 250 calories. That's an eighth of your calories for the day. And those calories do nothing for you. And if you eat them at night, all it does is spike your blood sugar and likely almost negates a lot of what you're doing the rest of the day. Like today I've already walked like 7 miles today because I walked from basically downtown Manhattan to Midtown Manhattan because I had some time. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, oh, I should go get some candy. And I'm like, no, I shouldn't do that, but we'll see. I don't know. Like, so I think for me, like if I actually wanted to lose like the 5 pounds I want to lose, it would be really easy. If I just set my mind to it and my self-sabotage is like, nah, I don't really care. And I think we'll talk more about like what's your commitment.
Yeah.
But that's just one example where I know the thing to do or not to do to actually be in alignment with my commitments, and I just choose not to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know it's not like emotionally vulnerable, but yeah, that's the first thing that came to mind because I'm like, oh, I'm like, that's the thing. It's like so right in my face. I'm like, just stop doing that thing.
Yeah. It's definitely hard. Like I feel like I do that with like binge watching shows. I'm like, just, you need to focus. You have so much that you need to do. Oh, what's this show? Because I've definitely been falling into that type of behavior where it's like, it's a very addictive type of behavior. And I just like you, I love sugar. And I just did a 10-day cleanse in between the time that we have talked. And I feel very, very good about like I haven't had any soda in a really long time, except for like the one day that we were at this restaurant that didn't have sparkling water and I needed to take pills. But it's one of those things that you really have to like take drastic measures to distance yourself so that you get out of that habit of just wanting to go there. And like yesterday I went to this like Jelly Belly warehouse.
Warehouse.
Yeah, so like we thought it was like a factory, but it's like, no, you take this little train, little thing around and they tell you about how they make Jelly Bellies, but you don't see it. So it's like just the warehouse with all the Jelly Belly candy. And, you know, I was like, I have to buy some. And so I ate some and I don't know what.
No, I said, of course you have to buy some. You can't
And
leave the Jelly Belly warehouse.
So I was like, I'm like, oh no, I just like ruined it. And, you know, I definitely had ice cream on Friday and you know, I know that this isn't gonna like fundamentally like throw me off my rocker, but it was like, I was doing so good. So, you know, having to use that self-discipline is crazy.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think about how I want to respond to this question right now. Cause there's definitely a lot of ways that we can hold ourselves back from some of these easy like decisions that we can make. I think that one of the ones that I struggle with a lot, is, and maybe I don't know to what extent we talked about this on your podcast, but like, I suck at asking for help and
we did talk about this. Yes. I remember this. Yeah.
And it's like the biggest issue, right? And sometimes I think it shows up most in like when I'm asking for money, because I'm like, I'm okay. I don't need to like ask. I'm good. Like you know, there's other people who are struggling. So why should I be asking? And so I think I hold myself back from like receiving things, because I try to do it for myself all the time because I don't want to inconvenience people. And that's just always been me. And, you know, I am a giving person and people can definitely take advantage of that. Especially when I'm just like kind of screaming it from the heavens. And so, but I struggle also with this idea of like, you know, doing things for myself because of guilt and all of that. And so like, I hold myself back from like thinking I'm a badass because I'm like, well, you know, what do I have? Like, how am I any better than anybody else? And I don't believe that I'm better than anyone else, but I think also, you know, over the weekend, I was looking at Facebook and my feed, and, you know, 3 years ago, my book, like I was able to touch my book for the first time. And like, I like sometimes forget that I'm an author. I forget that like, I've done some amazing things, and you know, like I kind of minimize my brilliance when I'm trying to blow up everybody else's. And so it's like, that's just interesting to me. But something
there's probably therapists who are going to listen to this and be like, I should call Apryl. There's a lot to talk about.
I know, but it's one of those things. It's just like, I want to be humble. I want to, you know, all of that stuff. But
oh, yeah, I get it. Yeah.
So yeah, that's where I cut myself short. Like I just don't want to cross the line of being, you know, arrogant, and it's a real struggle for me.
My guess is that you probably get the feedback that people are like, Apryl, we want more of you. And you're like, no, like, do you ever people like, hey, can you take care of yourself first, or can we get more of you? And you actually hold yourself back?
It's maybe. I don't think I've had it in the sense of like, you know, if it doesn't align with what I want to do, then that maybe is where I'll like, you know, it's like, well, but it, you know, like if somebody wanted me to be on TV, I'd be like, well, I would love to be on TV, but I don't want to do it in your way. You know, like I want it to be like, I want to be 100% authentic, and I want to be me. I don't want you to tell me, you know, who I should be, or like mold me into something that I'm not, because I care so much about authenticity. So it's like, it's gotta, like, I'm more than willing to do these things that I want, but I also want it to be on my terms. So it's like, I'm kind of in this like weird loop of like, am I ever going to get what I want? Because, you know, but maybe I will, and maybe I won't, but I also have to just be happy with what I have and the amazing things that are in my life and all that. So
Awesome.
Great question. Nice and vulnerable. Awesome. All right. And before we dive into talking about, I know that we've been already talking so much about so many things, and not even yet at the goods. The last bit that we have to do is just share some cheerful news, which I feel, especially this week with the market tanking and like whatever in politics and coronavirus and all of these things that are instilling fear, instilling negativity, instilling anger, and, you know, instilling the unknown. All of these things are impacting the world. This is probably one of the most important times that we share cheerful news. and spread it, and cheerful news and however you define it, because my story is going to be a little interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're going to share some stories to
Cool.
poke some positivity back into the world. So do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first?
Oh, I'll go first. Yeah. So I have two for you today.
Yay!
They're both about animals, but they're a little bit different. So I think like animals are generally, I don't know, I like animals. I'm a big dog person.
Yes.
I think animals are cheerful.
Yes.
So the first one is about this brother who, in 2015, he was on a road trip with his sister.
Okay.
And they were driving, and he joked to his sister that when his sister got married, and at the time I think his sister was like 16 or something, he was going to bring a llama to her wedding.
Oh no, where's this going?
I think we all know where this is going. So she got married this weekend, and he paid $400 to rent a llama, and he made it a tuxedo and brought the llama to his sister's wedding. And she was great. And she I'm not sure, it doesn't say in the story, but I get the impression that she forgot about this. So he shows up at his sister's wedding with a llama in a tuxedo.
That is
amazing.
Hilarious. Oh, I love that.
Yeah, so like it's like a human interest, but also, and there's actually a picture. If you this is actually in USA Today, but if you wanted to Google it afterwards, there's actually a picture of him, his sister, and the llama in its tuxedo. It's hilarious.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I'll definitely have to see that.
And then the last thing is, she said that she's likely, so he's about to graduate from college.
Okay.
She has promised to get him back by like somehow pranking him with something, which is also pretty hilarious.
I love it.
So that's the first story. The second story that I found that I thought was really cool is about this kid. He's 15, and he has a hobby, an interesting hobby. He makes bow ties. I'm sorry, he's 13. He makes bow ties. And I don't know if this is the kid that is on, do you watch Shark Tank?
Yeah, that's like, I just saw that like last weekend on Shark Tank, and I was like, oh, look at this.
Yeah, I don't know if it's actually that kid or not.
Okay.
But I don't think it's that kid. But this kid is sewing bow ties, making bow ties for shelter animals, and bringing it to them and putting it on the dogs and the cats. And he's made 500 bow ties, and he's helped over 100 animals get adopted with a bow tie on. How cute is that? So there's a picture of him holding up a dog on the article, that like multiple pictures, but it's like the dogs and the cats have little bow ties that he made for them. It's so cute.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. So there's two pieces of happy animal news. Animals getting adopted, animals going to weddings, and both animals, the theme of both of these, they're in formal wear, whether it be bow ties or a full tuxedo.
I love it.
Formal wear.
It's like a whole new market that's about to boom.
Oh, we should
clothes for animals.
We should start a clothing company about formal wear for animals. I think that this is the next thing.
Yeah.
This is where the big money is.
What would we name it? We'll have to think about it. We'll see. If you come up with a name for the company, we'll make it happen. Yeah, okay. So mine is veers off the topic of animals, but I wanted, for this week, I wanted to share a perspective on stuff. And so I think a lot of people who have been following me kind of know that I have this thing with media and just not appreciating the way that, especially with reality TV, how it's very, it's not really real. It's kind of scripted. And, yes, there's got to be some sort of scripted nature to it. Or there's magic that happens in the editing process. Mm-hmm. So
wait, hold on. I just want to be clear. Reality television is actually edited. I thought it was just a straight through takes. And what we saw is actually what's happening, right?
Yeah, like this is real reality. Like this is very unedited.
This is real.
If this is super, super real. I've definitely said things on the show where I was like, in my mind, like, oh my God, why did I just say that? And like, I wanted to edit, but like, I'm like, no, this is how it is. So this is just a perspective, and I don't know what other people think, but I was very, very skeptical. I'm just skeptical in general. I like to watch reality television for the fact that, like, I'm just fascinated with how good something can be edited to make it look like it's better than it is.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, and then, like social media in terms of just like, how do people like, how are personas portrayed through, the communication of like texting or a profile picture, and it's all about judgment. And we probably talked about this on the show, on your show too.
Yeah.
I hate it when people make these snap judgments, but it's also kind of difficult because this is how we need to connect.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that I don't judge people, and I do, like, I'm friends with so many different types of people, but so I watched The Circle on Netflix, just because somebody was talking about it, and I was like, oh, what's that about? And I was kind of skeptical, but then I started, I watched the first episode to just be like, what is this about? Like, what's the premise? How do they play this game? And, when I think about games, I think about Survivor and how it's like, how am I gonna like screw this person over? And like, it's all very competitive. And so I was like, oh gosh, this is gonna be one of those things. Where is it gonna go crazy? I watched the entire thing. This is probably the first reality show that I felt was like, people were caring about their authenticity, and yeah, maybe they were trying to play the game, but like, this is probably the closest to authentic that I've seen on a reality show that had a competitive piece to it. Like, the way that everybody at the very end, when they announced the winner, everyone was just like, they're like a family, and how a show actually made that happen. The only thing I didn't like about the show is that they were showing pictures of Chicago when it definitely wasn't filmed in Chicago. So that was like the part of it that, like,
Weird.
yeah, they had images of like the city of Chicago and like the city of Milwaukee, but it was taped in England to like try to veer people away. But it's, again, this whole judgment thing.
Yeah.
But just kind of seeing how, there were some people who weren't pretending not to be who they were, and just even also seeing, when, those people were exposed, and how the other people reacted. It was like all still like, okay, that kind of sucks because I thought you were somebody else, but like, they still kind of rallied together. Like, if you're gonna watch a reality show, like, this is kind of the one that I would almost recommend, because it actually has a lot more positivity. And I was really, really impressed with just how different it was from other reality TV shows. So I just wanted to share that, because I'm like, ooh, this would be the type of, like, not necessarily the type of show that I'd want to put on, but it was just, I appreciated like how much the word authenticity and the word connection were thrown, and those are two words that are tattooed on my arm. So it's like, I felt really connected to that. So that was kind of cool. So that's my positive news story.
Cool. Is this episode sponsored by The Circle on Netflix?
I know. I'm like, who's gonna pay me the big bucks? No, and see, I don't like. I totally just like, whatever, free plug for that show to just check it out. It was definitely one of the better shows that I've seen.
I'll have to recommend it to my wife.
Yeah. Since it sounds like she and I are very similar. So, all right. So let's talk about success. Let's talk about fun and how we meld the two together, right? Success is such a huge word for people who care, who have ambition, who have drive. It's definitely something that I value, with the word accomplishment on my other arm. Success is always just something that we're all striving to achieve, and it's defined very differently from person to person. Then you kind of add this second layer of like fun, and sometimes those two words don't seem to mesh together. And so we're going to talk about how to actually bring those two things together and actually achieve both of them simultaneously. And
Perfect.
so I just kind of want to start with just the concept of success. We just said that it's defined differently. So how do you define success? And then I'll share what that means to me.
Sure. Well, so background for the audience, I spent 19 years in sales. So for me, success was always defined for me with my quota.
Yeah.
And the money I made. So, and now I don't do that anymore. So I work for myself now. So for me, I still have a component. So I'm still a business person at heart. I mean, I'm a business person. I still run my own business just like you do. So part of success I define as like achieving my financial goals I set out for my business. And if something goes amiss there and I don't hit those, I have a lot of other things. So
Yeah.
for me, and we're going to talk about fun, so I'm going to leave that to the end, but do I feel free? So for me, freedom is a big thing. Am I free to get on April's show and say yes to that? Am I free to go and have coffee with somebody at 4 p.m. and make my own decisions around my schedule and how
Yeah.
I serve? So freedom is massive for me. And then success overall, like moving away from just the business into life. I mean, like, are you happy? If you're happy, like that's successful. Like, do you, if you're married, do you like, are things working there? And even if not perfectly, it's marriage. It's never going to be perfect, quote unquote perfect, but are you
Yeah.
still striving for the same things? If you're a parent, do you see your kids in a way that like makes you happy? Like I think as a parent, most of us are made happy by our kids, maybe until they become teenagers. But my daughter's only 4, so she's pretty happy still most of the time. Um, but like in terms of parenting, just like it's for me, like success is not just like, oh, I made this much money or I have this much money in the bank. A lot of it comes down to, do I feel free? Do I feel happy? And do I and as we're going to talk a lot about, am I having fun? So that's, and for me it's like, am I having fun?
Yeah.
And I think if you can say yes to those things, especially if you're an entrepreneur, you're likely just going to achieve the other goals anyway.
Yeah.
It just becomes easier and it's just like you want to do it. It's the
Yeah.
whole thing that's the big cliche is, if you find what you do, you never work a day in your life. Like, sure, to a point, there's always going to be, it doesn't matter. Like, I hate finances. I know that's like, you actually, like, that's something that you probably maybe not enjoy, but you like, I don't like looking at taxes. I don't like bookkeeping. Like that stuff numbs my mind, makes me want
Yeah.
to go and cry. But I have to do it, right? I have to do it.
Yeah.
So I think success is also just like holistically wrapping that all up into one thing and making it like creating the thing. As an entrepreneur, if you're working for somebody else, which is great, I worked for other people for 19 years, big companies, small companies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, success is defined a bit. Usually your success is pretty highly defined by other people.
Yeah.
If you work at startups, it's usually defined by like the company values, the management team. If you work for a big company, your success is usually defined by your boss. Like your boss will, this is what success looks like for your business. And I think you can take the idea of like, am I having fun and am I fulfilled and do I feel free and whatever that means to me, and bring that into any job. It doesn't really matter what it is. You can
Yeah.
still bring that in.
Yeah.
I didn't learn that until I was in my mid 30s. So I wish I would have known that when I was younger. Because for
Yeah.
me, it's like, here's your job and here's your success. And then I'm like, okay. And I went out and begrudgingly did it and had a lot of success in my job in terms of what I was supposed to do and making money, but I was never really satisfied.
Yeah.
So learned that a bit in the last few years. And then as I've decided to do my own thing here as of about a year ago now, like I'm learning that every day, like I actually get to create my own success. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's,
100%. And I love the kind of the way that you framed your definition of success. And it was based on these drivers. And, are you feeling free? Are you having fun? And are you truly happy? Right. And I think because you and I have gone through, coaching programs and kind of understand that this is how we define success. I mean, a lot of people will see success as like, okay, I'm making 6 figures in my job and I feel very, very financially stable and comfortable. And those are things that are important. But,
mm-hmm.
I think as you start to look more introspectively, you start to see, what things actually matter. And, so for me, my success is defined by, and, I only know this because I've done so much work on myself to really understand who I am. And
Mm-hmm.
it's, living those 4 values. Right. And so we couldn't do this on the podcast because it's all vocal. But I mean, like the fact that I have like these
Oh,
words
cool.
like tattooed, I don't know if you've seen them.
Yeah, totally.
But like, these are like all my 4 values. And it's like, if I'm not having fun, if I'm not accomplishing things, if I'm not like connecting with others, and if I'm not being truly me, like I'm not experiencing success.
Sorry, on the podcast, did we talk about we share 2 of my 3
Yeah, we talked to, because we have like our values are very similar.
They're very
In
similar.
that
I
sense.
have
You know,
one that
like,
yeah, super
yeah,
cool.
freedom is like super important to me as well, but I think that, it's like, how many words are you going to use? So like, I was like, I need four only fit on my arm. So let's stick with that. I mean, there's a lot of other things, family is super important to me. But I think it's also, you can see that in some of these words as well. And so,
Absolutely.
raising my kids to be their authentic self and not judging them based on, like what I want them to be when they grow up or something like that. And no
Absolutely.
matter how happy. So, these are more of the factors that I implement in the way that I raise my kids and the way that I run my family. Like, are we completely honest? Honesty is a really big one too. So, but my success is defined by that. And when I look at what I'm doing in my business, or if I'm looking at what I'm doing in my family, or I'm trying to choose the next fun thing that I'm going to do, like if it doesn't follow those values, like I know that I'm not going to be happy in the end. Like if somebody
Right.
were to offer me like six figures, this would be super hard to turn down. But these are the four guiding principles. Like, does it allow me to be my authentic self? Does it allow me to, connect with others, or does it isolate me? Is it fun? Like I don't want to have to do work that is grueling just for the paycheck. It's
Right.
not what it's about for me. And
Yeah.
so, you know, and maybe I do care about financial stability, of course, but it's like when you have that, it's like how much more do you want, like when you can just be happy with what you have. And I know
Yeah.
that in our world it's really hard to not want to make more money. I think we all would love more money,
Of
um,
course.
but there's also that give and take of like how far are you willing to go to be able to say I made this much money, or I got this, and to what are you willing to sacrifice. And
Yeah,
so
exactly.
yeah, so understanding success, I think for those of you who are trying to think about what that means to you, is really going through that exercise of understanding your values and knowing that you are living those top values to the fullest. That's a great way, because maybe money is a top value for
Yeah.
you, and that's
Right.
100% okay.
Yeah,
um,
totally.
but it also, understanding values is a great way to figure out how to connect with the right people that are going to get you to where you want to be. So
Right.
not only is it what you live by, but who are the people that are surrounding you and what do they live by. It's a really good exercise. And so
Yeah.
like even here
Cool.
we've got some values in common, which is why we feel very connected to each other.
Totally.
So it's awesome.
Yeah,
um,
it's amazing. Super cool.
Okay, so you talked a little bit when you were defining success. You were talking about success in terms of your career, how it might have been dictated by something external, um, and now that you work for yourself, like what would you say? Because I feel like this is interesting to like see a shift where before you know quota, or whatever your whatever the milestones, or whatever the I don't even know what word I'm like forgetting right now, was basically going to define your success for you. And
Yep.
so, what about it? And maybe I already know the answer, but maybe you'll see something different than I'm expecting. But like, why wasn't like working in a more corporate setting, or in these sales jobs? Why wasn't that? What wasn't working in that model for you?
Um, I think what wasn't working for me is I just didn't care enough.
Mm,
Like I always say this, people ask, and we talk about this, I talk about this in my podcast as a question I get quite a bit. Like, I really like the people I worked with. I actually liked my career. Like I wouldn't actually change anything about it.
mhm.
I just realized it just didn't matter to me anymore. Like I didn't care about like the corporate, like besides the money. Well, I'll put it this way. I would say there's two P's that kept me in corporate: the people and the paychecks. And
Yeah.
that's it. That's what I cared about. And I think I realized I can generate that myself. Like I don't need, I mean, I'm a coach now, so I get to talk to people all day, every day.
Yeah.
And
It's a fun
by
job.
doing that, I actually get paid to do that. So I'm generating my own paychecks that way. So I think what was missing for me is like caring outside of not getting fired or making money.
Yeah.
And looking back, now that I've gone, I hired a coach, I've gone through a coaching program, I coach people now, I understand a lot more about myself, like you, like self-actualizing. I could have done a much better job of looking for my what for. Like, it's not the company's responsibility to be like, this is why you should want to be here outside of the money and the people.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't like blame it on the companies at
Yeah.
all. It's just like, I like working for myself, and I like being able to make decisions based on what I want. And, at the end of the day, bosses always have their own agenda. Your bosses have who have their own agenda. Everybody's beholden to, in a public company, to the shareholders, and in a startup, you're beholden to the investors.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. Like, I'm an investor in a startup myself. That's great. But just didn't really care. Like, I didn't care working for other people. I always knew it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
And then I got the chance to make a decision to do it for myself. That's simple as that.
So, and I feel like there might be people who are watching this that are like, they might be unhappy in their, corporate jobs, or, just working for somebody else. And there's something that you feel strongly about, like it just wasn't for you. But there are a slew of people who are employed by other people and are, enjoying that and willing to. What do you think makes it successful for them that is just different for people like us?
Yeah, I think if you don't, like, I think it's great if you want to work for somebody else. My wife works for somebody else. She probably always will.
My husband too.
Yeah. I think really looking outside the money, and if the money is the only thing, it's likely that you can find something else. If it's only money and only the paycheck, you're probably not that happy, would be my guess.
Yeah.
So I would say to anybody who's watching the show today, and you had said they like working for somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
So they probably like the paycheck. They probably like the security that comes with that as well. Because, as an entrepreneur, we're out here generating our own income.
It's a little scary.
Yeah, it can be, but it can also be really amazing when you generate more in 2 weeks by having a bunch of new clients come on than you could ever generate in your corporate job. So, I would recommend like taking a look at, like, is it the security in the paycheck? And for some people, like, that really is a reality. As breadwinners, you've got kids going to college, bills to pay more, totally get it. And, I always question the security. Like, security in a corporation is not really a thing. It seems like a bit of a farce to me. It's very easy to lose your job in corporate, or have a company go under or change direction, and then where you're like, oh, I'm secure with my paycheck, you suddenly have nothing.
Yeah.
Like, maybe you have a severance package if you're lucky and all that. So I would just ask people to, like, take a look at, like, what is it they like. If they really love their work, great, that's awesome. Or you're like, oh, I like the security in the paycheck. Not saying you go out and do your own thing, but you might want to consider either talking to your boss, hiring a coach, talking to your spouse, whatever the thing is for everybody out there.
Yeah.
Like, what else can I generate for myself that's going to make this meaningful for me outside of those two things? Because those two things both can be destroyed pretty quickly.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And I think about, my husband, he has a job. He just started a new job last August. He is loving it. Just watching him come home from work every day, and he's like, I'm really good at my job. He's really enjoying the work that he's doing, which is, so great. And he even does have an entrepreneurial spirit. I think he had it a lot more than I did. Beforehand, I was just very happy with just working for somebody else and just being told what to do. Until now, I mean, it was really interesting to see how we've kind of role reversed in that sense.
Yeah.
But I think, if you are really truly enjoying the work that you're doing, and the paycheck's good and all of those things, you have those other benefits and perks, it also helps. But I think too, sometimes those people who are, very successful in their careers where they're employed by somebody else, there are people who really care about, and I'm saying this because I think that my husband, he really cares about, like, making sure that the family is taken care of, and he like he thrives off of that, and he does, you know, I think living in that discomfort of like, you know, volatility potentially, right, is not going to make the family as happy.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
you know, and, you know, he's been very successful in just the different careers or the different companies that he's worked for.
Yeah.
And he's created a lot of connections. Whereas I've kind of jumped from job to job to job. And I know a lot of people in a lot of different places, but not necessarily, I haven't, you know, been in the same industry for multiple years. So
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
those things, those connections that he had you know, some of his earlier jobs are coming back and like looping him back in. And so that's all always really nice when you have some of that in there. So I think there's
Yeah.
a lot of different combinations of reasons why it works for people. But I think, you know, there's also structure. I think that the structure
Yeah.
of, you know, like people who just, they're like, yeah, you know, freedom in a sense of like, I've got my free time, but, you know, I don't mind being told that I have to be at work from like 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. or whatever
Yeah.
that is, or 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.,
Yeah.
whatever, 9 to 5. So,
Yeah.
feeling like you like that structure, because that's definitely something that I think, you know, having to create your own structure can definitely be its own challenge in itself to realize, right? Like,
Especially
oh,
when
I
you've
have
got
to
the
get
circle
up.
on Netflix.
I'm like, oh, I just want to watch this show. I don't have any meetings today.
I want to watch a show and eat candy. I don't want to work today.
Oh man, but I love it. So the one of the other things that I wanted to talk about is, you know, so we kind of have talked about like success and the definition, but like infusing the fun, taking that little like thing and injecting it with fun.
Yeah.
Like, why do people feel like fun is not a factor in success, in your opinion?
I honestly don't know the answer to that because it's so core to who I am that, well, I think there's a concept in coaching that we talked about being at cause for yourself or being at effective external factors.
Yeah.
And external factors can really not be fun. Coronavirus and the stock market dropping today is not a fun or not at fun external factors.
Yeah.
But the question you get to ask yourself is, what do I get to create besides that? What do I get to do? So for me, being on the show with you is really fun. So I
Yeah.
get to do that. Yeah, right. I get to do that no matter what. I'm going to improv class tonight. That's really fun. I'm coaching a client. That's really fun. And so where do I get to create fun anyway? And I can only relate it to my experience in corporate when I was not having fun.
Mm-hmm.
I had one situation where I worked for a boss that I just was not good. Like, it's that simple, not a good boss. And I realized looking back that if I would have known then what I know now about how to actually address that internally, it would have gone much differently. It was just not fun. I was not enjoying it. And I'm like, oh, I'm not enjoying it because this person is this way. You can always create fun no matter what. You can always create fun. You can, and it's so funny because as parents, we do this with our kids all the time. We're like, oh, let's make a game of sitting in the car and being bored. Oh, let's count letters. You know, like all the little silly games you do. So I
Yeah.
think we as adults can do the same thing as like, let's create a game of this. And I think I shared this with you on the podcast, but I stole this from our friend, not really a friend, but Tim Ferriss had this saying when he was writing his book, Tools of Titans, he was stressed out about it. And he asked himself, what would it look like if this is easy?
Mm-hmm.
And that changed his perspective on everything. And now he comes at things like, what would it be if it was easy? So I stole that and I make it, what would it look like if this is fun?
Yeah.
There are a few things that I'm having struggling. For example, it's tax season. Struggling to get my tax stuff together for my accountant. Not really fun, but most things, how can it be fun? Like, oh, I need to go and address this thing with my wife that is not a great conversation. How can I still make this fun?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm like feeling my daughter is misbehaving. How do I make this fun? Oh, I'm not at my financial goals for the month. I really need to go find another client. How do I make that fun? So I think we can really generally when we're at cause for what we want and we're clear on our commitments, like when we've got our commitments tattooed on our forearms, like some people do, I do not. But when you're very clear about that, you can generally create your own fun, I think.
Yeah.
I think.
100%.
So yeah, it's like so it's generating it within in the midst of everything else going on around you, and actually not being at effect of all the external factors.
100%. Yeah, you know, like I also think one of the other things that I think prevents people from equating success with fun is just this idea of the need to like hustle to accomplish everything or anything of meaning, right? Like I had to work really, really hard to like make this thing happen, and now it's here, and like the fruits of our labor and all of that stuff. Like people just expect that you have to work hard to get certain places, and you know, working hard is not fun, right? Like sometimes we don't want to work hard. Like I think silently all of us just want to like, sorry about that. They just want to chill out and like be lazy, like if we had our way, right? I mean, and yes, things take hard work, things take commitment, but it's one of those things where it's like, you know, like I don't want to, if I didn't have to work hard for something, then I wouldn't, you know, then yeah, then of course I would do it. And
Yeah.
I think it's in that mindset of like everything has to be hard where the fun gets lost,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, you know, looking at it, being proactive and saying, you know, like, oh, if I had $1 million, I would spend this, this, and this, and this, and do all this. Why can't you do that now? And maybe it's like, okay, I can't pay those bills, but then you
Sure.
have this thought in your mind that it needs to look a certain way. You know, like, oh, I have to like hustle and grind, and I need to do all this, and then I'll be successful. Why don't you just look at it from this perspective of like, I already am successful and I'm already having fun, and using that to drive anything that you do? Because you know, there's so many different ways to solve for any problem.
Yeah.
You could probably create something very, very similar with like a very low budget that you might think might take a gazillion dollars to do,
Totally.
right? Or
Totally.
you know, it's just like one of the things that I thought was like so like beyond me is the fact that like Billie Eilish, she like her and her brother like made their album like in their house, and you know that's not something that's been done before. And you know, maybe she had connections, or maybe she had something, you know, that was another factor, but like to be able to produce something of the quality of that music that's being played everywhere now, like that's something that's proving something outside the norm, but still getting it done, still showing up in that. And so how can we look at these different ways, right? You know, when people are like, I want to be on TV, do you need to just be on TV, or like can you be on a YouTube show? You know, like
Right.
you want to have your own show, like you can start your own YouTube show. You want to have your own podcast, you can start that. It might not look the same as what, but you can make it your own, and
That's right.
there's
Right.
beauty in that. And
Yeah.
so I think, you know, being able to think about things in a way of like, okay, I know my values, I know what's important to me. How do I make this happen, and not use you know, the vision or the expectation that, you know, what we might be having, or what other people might expect for us to say, you know, yes, I'm a TV show host or something like that.
Yeah.
It's really, really interesting.
Yeah.
So
Awesome questions, April.
yeah. I know that we got to start wrapping up soon, but one of the things that I wanted to like make sure that we talked about too is that, you know, we went through this process of like really knowing what our values were. And, you know, we did it with the help of coaches, of, you know, learning about, you know, personal development and all of those things. But like, and I think I talk about this a lot on the show, but like, how do you know that those are your priorities and your commitments? So, you know, values are one thing, you know, the actual tangible things that you have in your life are another thing. How do you know when it comes down to it, like what's most important?
Yeah. So I'll share with the audience what my commitments are, what my three greatest commitments are: excellence, connection, and fun. So we share two commitments, which is not always the case. For me, it's a feeling. It's a feeling. What makes me happy, and that's what makes me happy is having fun, connecting with people and with myself. So for me, I look at connection with myself and connection with others.
Yeah.
And then for me, like when I feel like I'm doing something when I'm bringing excellence to either somebody else's life or to something that I'm doing, like creating a business, being on the show. Like arguably, who knows, excellence is obviously just an opinion, but trying to show up in your power and show up in your as your best self, I'm just really committed to.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's like it's just a feeling, and there's also a coaching framework to be able to actually delineate this for clients that I learned how to do.
Yeah.
So this is something I'll ask my clients in one of our first sessions, like, hey, what are you committed to? They're like, oh, I'm committed to like financial security. I'd be like, yeah, like what's above that? Be like freedom, love, joy, connection, fun, creating. A lot of people, like a lot of creatives, like their greatest commitment is like creating. So it's just a feeling. Yeah, it's just a feeling. And it's something that I think is also, without the support of somebody else, and somebody else could be your spouse or somebody else, it's really hard to just delineate for yourself because all the other stuff gets in the way.
Yeah.
We all
That
like
internal dialogue.
all that internal dialogue. And I'm not saying hiring a coach is the only thing you can do, but like I would never have known about almost anything we talked about today without hiring my original coach a couple of years ago. Yeah, because they like can reflect how you're being around things. They can say to you like, hey, it sounds like you're committed to excellence, connection, and fun. And be like, oh yeah, that's the thing I wanted to say, but I didn't know how to say it because I'm like I only see the world through my eyes. So yeah, I'd say just for me, it's a feeling. And then it's also like a spiritual thing. When you hear it, you know it, like it hits you in your like heart or your gut or wherever that is for you. It's not like I took some like 300 question assessment that's like, thank you for taking the assessment, excellence, connection, and fun. It wasn't like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I was trying to think of like how would I give a different perspective, because I definitely agree that it's a feeling, and you just kind of know it in your core. But if I had to like, and maybe I just know this because I got to a point where I was like, I'm in fight or flight mode and I need to like figure stuff out. Like something needed to change. I didn't know what at the time, but it's that feeling of like putting yourself in that position of, when you are like at the end of your life, right? Like I hate thinking about this, but like this is just like, if you need to put yourself in a position to feel those feelings, you're at the end of your life and you have to make a choice of like what you're going to, like what you want around you on that last day, what comes up.
Oh, I love that.
It's like, I don't care about the 50,000 emails that I haven't read in my email inbox. Like,
right.
I don't care about, the fact that like, my paycheck was didn't get deposited on time, or like all of these like little things that I care so much about.
Right.
Like I don't care about that at the very end of my life. Are my kids there? Is my family there? Is everybody healthy? Are they going to carry on my legacy when I'm gone? Like that's all I cared about. And that was what kind of helped me figure out like what's most important. Right. Like, when we think about what's going on with like coronavirus and like all these things, like, oh, I really want to go on this cruise that I'm supposed to go on in two weeks.
Yeah.
But like, is it worth like, potentially like getting sick or infecting other people? Like, is that something that I want to risk? I don't know. Yeah. Maybe not. Am I willing to quarantine myself for 14 days and potentially have my kids not go to school for 2 weeks because we don't supposed to go on this cruise? Is it worth it? Like you have to almost put yourself in these like dire situations to really see and really test what's important.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
So that's kind of like it's a little bit extreme, but it really, like, sometimes what kills me about just, about our society is that like we have to almost let ourselves get to that position where we're like, we're burned out, we're miserable, like we're on, at wit's end before we start to realize that something needs to change. And like I don't necessarily think we can change that, but like if you could put yourself in that place and like imagine like, oh my gosh, like, like you're drowning. I don't know, like putting yourself in that situation, which is not great, but it will force you to feel the feels if you can try to emulate that a little bit. And just kind of envision, like, are you living your best life? Why is this going off all the time? But
I'm gonna steal that I'm stealing that for my coaching practice. So
Yes.
I'll send you the commission checks.
Yes, sounds good to me. But yeah, I mean, sometimes you have to figure out how to make that happen. So
Beautiful, April.
all right. Okay, so I think that we are at our end, and this was amazing, Jason. I'm so happy that we got to talk about this, and maybe just to end on one last note, like if people were watching this or not watching this and they're fast forwarding to the end, and you get like 15 seconds to like share the point of this whole conversation today, what would be the one thing that you want people to take away with?
Yeah. Ask yourself, what would it look like if this were fun?
Yes. I love it. So focus on fun, and if you don't prioritize fun, then this is probably not the episode for you.
Yeah, between April and I are not your people if you don't prioritize fun. I know a lot of other people that you can work with, but this is what we're all about. So.
Yes, we are all about fun. But Jason, thank you so much for being my episode 46, and for those of you who are watching this, because it was pre-recorded, thank you so much for sticking with us, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Yes, thank you, April. It's a pleasure to be on. Thanks.
All right. Bye, guys.